So now that we've gone through the complete tutorial, now we need to actually start doing some things that are not part of the tutorial. So if we go look at the requirements for this project, so for Pong, we need to make sure that you name your project with your last name, first initial, and assignment. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. Two-player game, each player controlling a racket, bounce off the top walls. And here's the trick. We need to have, when the ball touches the left or right wall, we need to add a point to the corresponding player. And we also need to show each player's score on the screen. So that's not in the tutorial in any place. So we need to figure out how to display things on the screen. And we're going to need to deal with this adding up score for the left or right wall. So let's deal with showing something on the screen. How am I going to do that? Let's just use our tools that we have here. I have an internet browser. Let's go look up, how do I add some sort of score text? So I'm going to give it the context. It's Unity. And then add score text. So displaying the score in text. That seems like a reasonable place to go. Hey, this is the rollerball. This is what Game Design 2 is using. If we take a look at this, if you actually go through this video, you'll find out that right about a minute 2, he talks about exactly how to do this. So what he's going to do is he's going to go up in the hierarchy here and go to create a text element. So under UI, text. So that's what we're going to want to do. So I'm currently over here in my hierarchy, create UI text. And it creates this canvas, it creates this text element, and creates this event system. So here's the text over here that we're going to be messing with. So I'm going to attach this to the left wall. I'll see if I can get the left wall to work, and then hopefully if you have that, you can figure out the way to do the right wall. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this left wall and add some information to this. I need to somehow attach this text element to this wall, which means I'm going to need some way of storing what the current score is as a variable. So I'm going to have to create a script for this. First, let's rename this. I'm going to name this left score display. And then over here, with the left wall selected, I'm going to add a script component. So new script. Let's see, let's call this left score. So it's over here in my project folder. I'm going to move it into my scripts folder and then go ahead and launch that. So left score has our two default things in it. I actually think I am going to use start, though I don't think I'm going to use update. So I'm going to delete update. So a couple things that I'm going to have to keep track of in this particular script is that I'm going to need to keep track of what my actual score is. So I'm going to make this a public variable so I can change it in other places. And it's going to be an integer, so it's going to be a whole number. I'm not going to have like 2.3 as a score. I think I'll call this left score. Notice I capitalized the S. I'm also going to need to have some way of keeping track of what I'm writing in my canvas, in my little score box. So I'm going to keep track of a thing called a text. Not text alignment, just text. And I'm going to call this my left score text. Now, text is contained inside of not just the Unity engine, but the Unity engine period UI. Stands for user interface. So that's where text is located. That's the library it's inside of. Let's see, I need to set my score. That's initially there, left score. I'm going to set it to 0 at the beginning of the game. And I probably need some way of setting this text to be this number. That's probably going to happen a lot. So why don't I actually create a separate method for that? So I'm going to call this set count text. I'm not going to do anything, I'm not going to return anything. It's just going to set it directly. So I'm just going to return void. That means I'm not actually giving anything back. I'm just doing some action here. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to say, take the text box, and inside of that there is this thing called text, which is the actual letters inside of a text box. I'm going to say, hey, that's this thing here. Now, I can't just do that. The problem is that this is a number and this is letters, and technically those are not the same things. So I actually have to convert this number into letters. And the way I do that is I say dot to string. That will take whatever this thing here is, convert it into letters, so I can assign it into the text box. So let's save that. So this left score display, one of the things that you may notice is that this text is down here. Now UI elements are a little bit different. They have their own kind of screen area. So I actually have to take this text box and move it within the display area. So while I will be looking at this from the camera's perspective, this is my UI display area. So notice if I run this, new text is up here. If I want to move this around, I do it within this text area here. So notice that this actually alters where I'm going. I'll have to figure out, based on this display, where I want it to go. Notice the UI rectangular transform is actually different from all the other ones. This doesn't have a position XYZ transform. It's a little bit, it's more in terms of what the actual screen is. So don't forget, when I'm in this playing interface, when I get out of it, notice it's jumped it back to where it was. Anytime you make any changes in that interface while the game is playing, those are discarded once you stop. So I need to go back to here. I'm going to put the text probably about there. And let's start off by setting this to 0. And that color is not going to work on a black background, so I better change this to white. So now if I play this, now my 0 text is here. So I have some text now in a user interface box. How do I get it to add one to my score when I actually hit this left wall? Well, I don't know how to do that, so let me go look something up. So let's see. Unity code for collision. Detecting collisions with on collision enter. Okay, so what does this do? So it looks like the way they do this is they use this command here, on collision enter, and it's got some sort of collision event. Okay, that's interesting. Just because I'm curious, what does the next one say? Here's a collision event. Says information for on collision enter. Here's on collision enter itself. And here's some example code. All right, so what it looks like is that I'm going to put this into my script, this on collision enter event, and then whatever I want to do, it happens inside of here. Now, this is for a 3D game. It turns out there's a on collision enter for collision 2Ds. So if I look at collision 2D, notice there is on collision enter 2D, which is really what I'm going to want for my two-dimensional game. So this is on collision enter 2D. It takes a 2D collision. Now, you may be wondering what this thing in the parentheses is. What is a collision 2D? This is whatever object hits me. So if I need to know about whatever the item was that just collided with me, that's what is contained inside of this object. So in our example, I'm going to put this on collision enter 2D into the wall, and this thing that's going to hit me is going to be the ball object. So if I need to get information on that, I'll use the collision here. All right, clear as mud. So if we go in here, I'm going to need a private one of these, because I don't think other people need to know about my collision events. I'm not going to return anything, so I'm going to say void on collision enter 2D. This is a very long name. I'm just going to shorten this down to call for collision